Hi, I'm Mike Sham from the State of the Nation, and we're going to have a little bit of fun here at the end of 2022, and we're going to make some predictions for the new year. For 2023, what does the world hold, according to me? So in a year's time, we can go back and have a look and see just how close we got. So let's begin. Let's talk about the politics of South Africa first. I am predicting, for starters, that we're recording this ahead of the ANC elective conference. I think that that's an open and shut case. Cyril Ramaphosa is going to be re-elected in a bit of a landslide, and he's going to get his way. He's going to get everybody that he wants. We're going to have Paul Mashatile as his deputy president. He's going to have everybody that he wants in place working for him. He's going to have his chosen team. This isn't going to be what was called a zebra coalition the last time, which had some Zuma supporters, some Ramaphosa supporters. It was a disaster. He is going to go, him and his supporters are going to go full tilt and have all of his people in the key positions. And then I predict that by the end of January, there'll be an absolute purge within the ANC of all of the Zuma ministers, starting off with Nkosazana Dlamini Zuma. She's going to go. I got a feeling that he's going to have to find another post for Gwedi Mantashe. I think he is just too unpopular at the moment, and the way he's dealing with the power crisis is a disgrace. I think another person who's going to go into retirement quite softly is the guy who's been probably the biggest disappointment, and that has been Pravin Gordhan, who doesn't seem to have the will to do his job anymore. So there's going to be a few changes that we've all been longing to see. Please, heavens above, it looks like we may even see the end of Bheki Cele. He's been quiet towards the end of 22. I got a feeling that this guy sees the writing on the wall, take his pension, go live next door to Jacob Zuma in Nkandla. So I got a feeling that you're going to see some sweeping changes in the cabinet. It may even help the running of the country, because they're going to come in with a bit of enthusiasm, a bit of new blood, and the ANC are going to do their best to be a good government, because I think they read the polls and they understand that the ANC is in tremendous trouble. But you cannot manufacture quality, and even though we may see some enthusiasm in the beginning of 2023, by the middle and the end of 2023, we'll be mired in the same problems that we've had all along. We're going to see non-performance. There will still be some people that support him that are useless people, like Fikile Mbalula. He'll still have a key position, but he's just not up to it. And all of Ramaphosa's supposed new stars are hardly stars. They haven't done very well. So I don't think that this new dawn, let's call it the new dawn, is going to help, right? And they are going to be as bad as they ever were. So something to look forward to. Couldn't do worse. So next, let's look at the economy. Interestingly enough, I'm quite bullish on the economy. I'm quite bullish on the economy for not necessarily the best reasons in the world. I'm quite bullish on the economy because we can't do much worse than what we have been doing, right? The country has been in a terrible mess. While these little political battles are being fought, nobody really cares about the economy. You haven't heard any ANC politician, any leader getting up saying, let's do what's in the best interest of the economy. So in other words, the economy's just been left ever since COVID to do whatever it needs to do. And in actual fact, that's been quite good, because we haven't had ministers out there getting in the way. So I think that we've got a combination of a very low base, plus a little bit of a tailwind coming from international numbers. We're starting to see a recovery in America. And people are getting to grips with some of the crises. So I got a feeling that we're going to see an economy that grows above 2%, which I know is ridiculous numbers. A country like South Africa needs 5 and 6%. But we're going to at least see 2%, which is going to be a hell of a lot better than the 1% that we've become accustomed to. Power. What is going to happen with electricity and power globally? Well, I think there, once again, what is going to happen is what started to happen already. People are starting to make their own plan, right? I think you're taking the ultimately governed industry. Critical supply of electricity has been run by the government long before any of us who are watching this today was alive, right? Hard to remember, or hard to even go and understand that before Eskom was established nearly 100 years ago, everybody did their own thing for power. Yes, people didn't have electrical plugs, they didn't have electric kettles or toasters. It was a different world. But we've had centralized power globally for close on 100 years. This is breaking down, and it's breaking down fast. And to be fair, it's not only in South Africa. And people are rapidly making their own plan. And I got a feeling that this is going to accelerate. Just think of your life, my life. We probably have made an alternative power plan. If you're at the upper end of the economy, or if you run a business, you now will not move into an office that doesn't have alternative power. If you're running a factory, there is no ways you view a lack of power as an option. You're going to go out there, get a generator, get an inverter, get solar, do whatever you need to do, but you will have power. So in other words, we are going to see a dramatically decreased reliance on Eskom, and we are going to see people making their own plan, which could mean that we free up some electricity. And if Eskom does half of a decent job, there'll be a little bit more power for them to power the other stuff that they need to power, the traffic lights, the railway lines, etc. So I think that we're going to see the problem alleviate a little bit, but what is going to accelerate is the privatization of power. And I don't think that privatization is going to happen in an orderly fashion through Eskom, because Eskom and the government just haven't been good enough at it. They envisage a thing where I go put up a solar plant and sell my electricity to Eskom. Well, Eskom and the Ministry of Energy just haven't been up to it. So what would I do? I'd take that same solar plant and I'd sell my power to factories directly. We're going to see that kind of solution. So I think power is going to be less of an issue. And as an aside, when Eskom finally decides to get their act together, they're going to look around and their clients are going to say, no thanks. It's going to look like a situation much like Telkom looked 30 years ago when cell phones came along. Telkom thought everybody still needed a landline, held on, till eventually they said, okay, we'll give you a half decent service. And everybody said, no thanks, I've got a cell phone in my pocket. And they never ever recovered from that. So I think a slightly better outlook for power come next year. Let's talk about Russia's invasion of Ukraine. What is going to happen with this madcap adventure in the Ukraine? You know, Vladimir Putin, a lot has been written about this particular conflict and what drove him. And I can't help thinking that what drove him was a massive, colossal failure of intelligence. I don't think for 1 minute he understood that in the 30 years of independence, certainly the western part of Ukraine has become a country. It has become a unified force. People do identify as Ukrainians, and therefore they were prepared to defend their country. I got a feeling that he was fed a whole lot of bad information, old information, and information that came out of the Crimea and the eastern part where Russia has been involved since 2014. And they thought that Ukrainians would just say, oh, come in, take over the place, we'll go back to what life was like under the USSR. Instead, there was he found a resolute bunch of people prepared to defend their country, which they've done manfully. And then, of course, his next massive miscalculation was the miscalculation of the international community. I got a feeling that Vladimir Putin looked at the catastrophe of January the 6th, 2021. He had a look at America and Trump and wokeness and all the protests that have happened and defunding police, and said, this is a society in decline. They wouldn't be up for a fight. What he didn't realize is that the Americans didn't have to fight. All they had to do was send arms and ammunition to the Ukrainians, and they were more than happy to do the fight. Russia, once again, as they've done so many times in their history, completely overestimated their ability, their military ability, and now they're paying the price. So what's going to happen? Well, Russia's called up a whole lot of raw conscripts. They're going to do what they always do in wars, and that is throw a whole lot of men in the way of machine guns, and it's going to be a bit of a bloodbath for Russia. And come better weather, Russia will mount a counter-offensive, but I don't think it's going to do them much good. If you just look at it, by now, where are they getting rearmed? They're using what by all accounts are fairly average drones that they're getting from Iran. Where else are they going to get arms from? We know that the Russian industrial capacity is quite poor. The sanctions must be hurting them, even though they're whistling a happy tune. So I got a feeling that Russia's in deep trouble, and by the end of 23, they'll be roughly in the same position they're at, but with more casualties, and they will sue for peace. There'll be some agreement which maybe states that they keep Crimea. And that's going to be the end of that, right? And it'll be a misadventure, and Vladimir Putin will actually have to vacate his office. That's what I see happening in 2023 in Russia and Ukraine. What happens with China in 2023? As we've seen recently, China's been having a few issues of their own. From being this country that seemed to have everything sorted out and challenging America for being the leading country of the world, what's actually going on in China? Well, it seems to stem from one massive problem. And no, the problem isn't COVID-19. The problem seems to be Xi Jinping, their president for life. He seems to be so determined to be the leader that he's gone power mad, and quite clearly is not quite understanding the bargain that any leadership has with the people. And the leadership that the people have with the Chinese Communist Party is, we'll support you. We won't question or ask for more democracy as long as you allow us to live a better life than our parents. In other words, as long as the economy keeps on improving. Very different arrangement to, for example, what you would have in a place like South Africa, where what is the bargain? Well, the bargain seems to be as long as you keep ending apartheid. But anyway, in Russia, the bargain there for the people is as long as we can earn a living. We've heard our grandparents starved to death. Our parents lived quite poorly. We are living a little bit better. Don't mess with that bargain. Well, they have messed with that bargain. They've messed with that bargain in a couple of ways. Starting off with the COVID-19 and the COVID-19 response, which of course angered Chinese people, because who wants to be locked up in a flat for 3 years, but also really concerned much of the Chinese market. And we all know that many of the things that we buy are made in China. Well, suddenly people, those big companies that use China as their workshop and as their factory, they suddenly thought, this is not a partner we can trust. We don't know how the guys, there's no predictability. You may have sudden law changes, sudden rule changes, and now we've invested our entire production capacity in Russia, and we are vulnerable to a madman who just wants to stay in power. And what's happened? We have seen a massive amount of onshoring by companies worldwide, where they've taken at least some of their industrial capacity and moved it closer to where they operate out of, especially the American companies. We see China making a massive miscalculation when it comes to the technologies that they need, right? And America cut them off at the knees with the so-called CHIPS Act, which prohibits Chinese from getting the advanced chips that you need for some of the more fancy equipment. Leave them just with the dumb chips that they can make kettles and toasters out of. So the Chinese economy is not going to it's not going to continue on its wonderful growth path, and it needs dramatic growth because it remains a very poor country. Even though there's been pockets of wealth, that's now going to be disturbed and it's going to go right through, and I don't think that the Chinese people are going to be very happy with it. So I'm not predicting wonderful things. I reckon there's going to be continual strife in China, and their support for Russia isn't going to help them because they are then once again nailing their colors to the mast. I think that China is going to have a problem going forward, and I would not be an investor in China. What about some of the crazy places? Iran. Now there's a place, that's an interesting one. Let's have a look at what's going to happen to Iran in the future. Who would have thought that the Iranians would get undone by something which on the scheme of things seems to be quite minor? And that was a woman who their morality police decided to arrest because they didn't like the way she was covering her head. And now what happened is that people started to protest. The Iranians went down in force, as they always do. They decided to stamp it out with force. But interestingly enough, the people weren't buying it. They weren't having it. People carried on protesting against the morality police. The Iranians said officially they've disbanded their morality police, when it doesn't look like they have. They've begun to execute some of those protesters. The question is, will it work? Sadly, my prediction is yes, it will work. It will work because I don't think that Iranians can imagine a different world. You know, it's not a country where there's other political parties. Here, if you decide that you want to bring down the government, you're kind of deciding you're going to bring down the religion as well, and that ain't going to happen. So I got a feeling that sadly, as brave as those people have been to fight for their freedoms, nobody's going to step in to help them. This is hardly a Ukraine-Russia situation. And sadly, Iran is just going to go more and more rogue. Those mullahs that are in charge are going to get worse and worse. They're going to keep on arming Russia. This one ain't going to end badly, but it's not going to end in 2023. In actual fact, I got a feeling that Iran could become a real problem area which we will have to deal with when we do predictions in the future. But certainly, I don't see anything happening in Iran anytime soon, other than the whole situation getting worse. In closing, to be happy or to be sad? Let's have a look. Well, I remain at heart an optimist, and I think that people just want to live a decent life. And I think that we've had a couple of really harsh years. The whole COVID response, I think, has been diabolical. I've said that many times. I think the idea of switching off economies was not a very good idea. I do know that people died, and that's always a horrible thing to have. But I don't think that, it was the right response. It's really hurt economies. I got a feeling that what you're going to see is you're going to actually see a few people being held to account, especially governments that were very, very supportive of COVID. I got a feeling we're going to see a few election upsets in places like New Zealand and Canada, where people are going to carry a high level of anger into those elections. We already saw a government change in Australia. In Britain, I got a feeling when they go to the polls again, the COVID situation will be brought up, and I think you could see a change of leadership there again. South Africa, we live here, we love it. We've had a very wet summer. We haven't seen a lot of sunshine, but I've got a feeling that we're going to start seeing sunshine in January. I think we're going to get back to work, and I've got a feeling that this economy is going to improve dramatically in the new year. And I want to wish everybody that supported us as we've gone on the State of the Nation adventure to keep doing that. To anybody that's watching this, please subscribe to our channel. We are getting great numbers, and we've got some very, very big surprises in store for the new year. And this is going to be an exciting platform to keep an eye on. And I'd like to wish you the best for the new year. And I hope 2023 is very successful to everybody that's watching us today. And I thank you so much for joining us whenever you have, and we'll see you early in 2023.